Sergeant Robert Green Jr. and my mother, whose name is Nazi Shabazz. And I have an older sibling who's 5 years my senior, lives right in Frisco, my big brother. And basically, we checkerboarded the U.S. Even though I was born in 75 in Madrid, we came to the U.S., I believe, by 76, kind of checkerboarded the U.S. And ultimately, my father was discharged, and we began a life here in the U.S. It was very rough upbringing. My father got involved in drugs. That was his escape from everything that he experienced in 2 tours in Vietnam in the 70s. And, that didn't fare very well for our family. So there was a lot of domestic violence. And by the age of 15, I left home in a really dramatic way or traumatic way. My father was attempting to kill me. And I was able to call the police on him and leave. After that series of events, I found myself completely homeless, living with just from pillar to post, and I was introduced into what they call now sex trafficking back then, and this was 91, 92. It was not called sex trafficking back then. I was just a teenage runaway. But now the appropriate term would be sex trafficking, because that's basically how I made a living and supported myself. That happened in Atlanta, Georgia. So I basically became like a roadie for a couple of music groups, and that's how that happened. One thing led to another. By 1997, I was at my wit's end and rock bottom from the situation, and moved from, Elizabeth, New Jersey, back to Dallas, Texas, where my brother, who had become, he got married, and I moved back in with him. And so I spent quite a bit of time trying to recover from that trauma. And ultimately, I got married. That was in 2002, and started my own family. And I think that what's really significant is in 1997, my exit out of that lifestyle came in the form of a nervous breakdown. And I was hospitalized in a mental institution for about a month. And it was at that point that my brother was able, they reached out to him, and he was able to come and get me from Elizabeth, New Jersey, and take me back to Dallas, Texas. And so my healing journey began at that time. Being out on the street at 15 years of age. Of course, I was not in school. And so there was that. So I had a lot of obstacles and hurdles to overcome, right? I was 25, year 2000, in Plano, Texas, before I got my GED. And wow, a couple years later, I actually enrolled in college, but I battled a lot with belief in myself, belief that I was smart enough and good enough and all of these different things. And so it was quite the roller coaster ride. I didn't graduate from college, but I'm proud to say that I'm a junior now. I'm taking online classes. And so I do plan to finish, because I do now understand, yes, I'm smart enough, I'm good enough, I deserve this. But I also want to set an example, not only for my children, because they do not have, my story, right? Gratefully, they have a good upbringing. But I also want to be able to inspire others as well to continue working on yourself and getting the therapy and the healing that you need in order to have a life that is causing you to make an impact on someone else's. And so during those years of recovery, I began to tell my story and mentor a lot of young ladies, especially a lot of teenagers, young adults. Since then, I've been able to share my story on multiple platforms. I've written a book about what it is that I've experienced. My husband and I are local missionaries and church planters. My husband is from Liberia, West Africa, and he is a pastor. And our ministry is in the Hearst area right now. It's being incubated, if you will, through Peace Lutheran Church, who has partnered with us to reach the community. They're very aware of my story, and here I started an after-school program. Go figure that, without any degrees or any educational background history, education was a joke for me. I felt like it would never happen for me. But I'm just living proof that you do not have to have all the ducks in place to make an impact. And so ASAP Kids went ahead and started that, and I have big dreams for ASAP Kids. Right now, it's an after-school program, but I want it to, the vision of it is that it would be a community enrichment program that will focus on child safety and equip kids to protect themselves. I want their self-esteem to take a boost. You know, a lot of them have very terrible situations that they are experiencing, a lot of poverty. There's, in some cases, domestic violence. And we're really uncovering a lot of different things the more we get to know these children, what they're dealing with. But we want them to have a sense of self that, despite of what is happening to them, it does not limit their future. And their future is up to them and the decisions that they make. Even though there are decisions that are made for them at their age, that they still play a role in how successful they will be. That quote that Frederick Douglass so eloquently stated, it's just true. It's much easier to build up a child and give them strength than to repair a broken man or adult.